Well, great. How am I going to top that? Hit me. Amu. Guys, I got here and watched you walk across the parking lot. You all look fabulous. You having fun? You guys? So, nobody got here on your own. A lot of sacrifice happened to bring you to this point. Could you all take a moment to look around, find your friends and family who've all come to celebrate you? Please give them a wave to thank them and let them know how much you love them. To the Mattawamkeag community, you guys gave me the best job in the world. I got to teach your kids. You always let me know that I was appreciated. You made me feel blessed. Class of 2017, I'd like you to know how honored I am that you'd give me one last chance to attempt to teach you. Thank you. I really wanted to do this. I hope you like it. I struggled in high school. So in a sense, this day, graduation day, it was like my birthday. I got to walk out into this brave new world, no longer constrained by the role of having to play the small kid. You guys have known each other forever. And this familiarity brings with it a certain amount of comfort, but it also has a cost. And that you fall into the trap of trying to meet other people's expectations. So I hope that today you can also feel a sense of joy and anticipation as you prepare to build yourself into what you want you to become. So I thought about this, and the most important thing I could think of to talk to you about was the significance of the next 12 years of your life. So obviously, my theme for tonight is wine, women, and song. I want to talk about wine. I want to talk about wine can fool you, and there's been a time or two it made me into a fool. Wine can close your window. It can take away your dreams, and it replaces them with a lie. The lie that things are good enough, that you don't need to dream, that you're satisfied with where you are. And that's incorrect. Your job is to build a fire, and you can't burn by being complacent. You probably think I'm about to give you the drug lecture. I know, I got it too. I had this teacher, I remember her giving me the evil eye, and she says, "Murphy, if you get involved with drugs, your growth will be stunted, your eyesight will fail, and your hair will fall out." I want to tell you a story. I had a friend, and he was really smart. In junior high, he had the best chemistry set. Little history lesson here. A chemistry set was this science toy that came with about 50 to 100 bottles of various poisons. And kids would build these sort of science labs in their basement. I'm not making this up. And you're supposed to mix these chemicals together to see what would happen. I mean, what could go wrong? Okay. And the true sign that you were a nerd is when you compared your chemistry sets. You had late-night phone calls asking to borrow a cup of soda or potassium nitrate. You know. But I digress. My friend, his explosions were better than my explosions. It was a crude form of communication, but in my peer group, blowing things up was considered socially acceptable. And he was really smart, but his family life wasn't very good. And he started to smoke a lot of marijuana to cover his hurt. And he barely graduated from high school. And he couldn't even get accepted into a college, so he went into the Marines. And he found it was hard to be stoned with a 200-pound sergeant chasing after him, telling him to drop down and give him 50. He became a medic, and he told me that in every practice battle drill they ever did, he was killed. He sobered up and he finished his service, and he decided he wanted to go to college. He was 22 years old. He finished college with a degree in biology, and at 26, he tried to do some more schooling, so he applied for medical school. He took his tests, and he placed first in the entire state of Florida. He went to the University of Michigan Medical School, and he became a surgeon. Today he lives in San Francisco, and even though he had a rough start, he never quit, and he figured things out. And some of you might be able to relate to this story. I want to talk about women. Or maybe more appropriately, I want to talk about relationships. I tell my students a joke. I say, I'll never forget old what's-her-name. But it's not true. I remember every girl I ever kissed. A romance story, perhaps? When I was about your age, I just finished high school, and I met a young lady, and we could talk, and we had things in common. We had fun, and we laughed. I'd never felt like this about anyone I'd ever met before. And funny thing, she wasn't a real looker, but you know what? In my eyes, she was so beautiful. One time we went camping. It was nighttime. We were on the banks of this river. We were lying there, watching it flow, watching the stars. We were close together, and I smoothed up to her. Yeah, I put the smooth on. And I rested my head next to hers. And I remember how soft her hair felt and how nice it was. I reached out to hold her hand. As I touched her, she reached back and she held my hand, and it felt so nice. And I was so happy. Well, a couple months later, there was some indiscretion, and she told me she never ever wanted to see me again. And I wasn't able to tell her about how I felt about her. And I watched that ship sail. And I learned what a broken heart was. And I suffered. I began to wear clothes that were all one color. I began carrying a guitar. I grew a scruffy beard. I looked like Nate Jameson. I started smoking a pipe, and I got sad. I was so sad. It was the best. Man, did I milk that ticket. You see, one part of me was sad because it hurt when she dogged me. But another part of me is happy because I was free. And I saw all these beautiful women at the University of Minnesota, and I wondered what it would be like to meet them. And I knew they were wondering what it would be like to meet me. Romance is a great thing, but sometimes you cheat yourself by getting in too deep, too soon, or too young. Some of the best things are things you have to do on your own. Maybe some of you can relate. I want to talk about singing. I want to talk about the passion that makes you burn. People I knew were getting jobs, getting married, and I couldn't see it. It was too soon. What I wanted to do, what my song was going to become, I wanted to go climbing. And my song was going to take me into the American West. And so I began to train. And I got strong, like you can get when you're young and inspired, and it matters to you to have a set of veins like a road map crawling up your arms. I was ripped. I went west. It was the first of many road trips. We were driving all night long, and I'd never seen mountains before. It was late, and we were going through the Bighorn Canyon, and I could see the silhouette of the peaks against the night sky. And it was like when you're a little boy or a little girl, and you find out that caterpillars turn into butterflies, or that maple seeds spin like helicopters as they fall from the tree. To again have that sense of wonder that the world was better than my imagination thought it would be. And what did it feel like to walk 17 miles into the Wind River Range in Wyoming with a friend? And on the way in, they were flying the body out of a man who was killed a week before. He was struck by lightning. He died on the route we were going in to do. And I worried that night, knowing how bad it could be if we got caught up high in a storm. And what did it feel like to be halfway up Devil's Tower with your hands locked off into a crack above an overhang, and then to cut loose with your feet and dangle, and then pull through and stand over that edge and feel the sun and the wind and look out over 100 miles of desert and feel so alive that you felt like that sunlight was pumping through your heart and your eyes became that view. And I knew that there was no place else I wanted to be. And I knew I was singing my song and I was in the right key. And you traveled. We were riding a freight train through the desert in eastern Washington. We got dropped into the hole to let a priority train have the track. It was about 4 a.m., and I was standing in the boxcar looking out at the Columbia River, one of the great rivers of the world. It was about a mile wide, and there was a barge going downstream. And it was dark, and the tugboat was navigating with a strong searchlight, scanning the river. I could see the beam going bank to bank like a laser. And across the river, there was the Union Pacific. There's an eastbounder going into the heartland. Beyond, I could see the interstate with big trucks rolling east and west. And the words of the beat poet Allen Ginsberg came to me. Whither goest thou, America? Whither goest thou, America, in the shiny car in the black, black night? It felt like everything in the country was moving, and I was swimming right in the middle of that current, singing at the top of my lungs. And my song was changing. Climbing was being replaced by people and places. My friend Tom went into the Canadian Rockies. A big system came in and shut down the entire range for a week of rain. And every climber in about a 70-mile radius was packed into the bar at the Athabasca Hotel. Canadians, Americans, Europeans, Japanese, nothing in common other than a love for the mountains. It was 8 in the morning, and Tom said the entire place spontaneously broke into song. Valerie, Valera. No matter where you went, something was happening. And oh, how you wanted to be there, to feel it, to feel how much style everything had. And it wasn't all about adventure. I had this roommate, can't even remember his name. He moved in with about 4 grocery bags of clothing and a crate of albums. And we used to stay up late listening to his music and talking. And he said to me one night, Dan, I got a call today, and I have a chance to go to New York City to learn how to read and write poetry. I think I'm going to take it. And he did, and I never saw him again. My friends that I climbed with, one by one, they all moved on. Herwig went to New York to work at the United Nations. Grant became an artist, and he moved to Seattle. Bart moved to Maine and started teaching. Sean to Arizona to become an astronomer. Chris, Don, and Kenneth went west to graduate school. And after 8 years, I graduated from the University of Minnesota with my bachelor's degree. I can honestly say that being a freshman were 3 of the best years of my life. The last man standing was Peter. He was our best climber. He was the best windsurfer I ever met. During summer, Pete lived out of his Dodge, and he sailed. Poor didn't even mean to describe his economic situation, and he sailed. He'd sleep in turnouts at the side of the road, and he sailed. He could do things with a windsurfer that maybe 3 or 4 other people in the world could do. And he had a brother who was about your age. And just like your parents are wondering what to do with you, his parents had to do something with Carl. And what has to be a world record for poor judgment, they sent him west to live with Pete. By this time, Pete had an apartment, so it wasn't like Carl got the front seat while Pete was in the back. But Carl was under Pete's watch, and they sailed. Carl had a good line from those years. He was talking about Hood River, Oregon, and he said, man, this town, there's nothing to do. It's so boring. But when the wind is blowing, and I'm out there on the water, complete satisfaction. For a while, it was summers in Oregon and winters in Hawaii. Carl graduated from college, moved to Telluride, got a job, fell in love, and was going to get married. He asked Pete to be his best man. So the whole family goes to Ohio for the wedding, Here's the groom's dinner. It's at a country club. You know the scene. Big room full of round tables, all draped with white cloth, flowers in the center. Plates are surrounded about 5 or 6 different forks. There's a seating chart with name tags. You got to find where you belong. So the evening starts, and the good-looking uncle gets up. You know the guy. He looks natural wearing dress shoes. The uncle gets up to start the evening. He says, "We want to thank and welcome the Wagner brothers for coming all this way to be with us tonight. Our only regret is they're not as wealthy as they are handsome." These Ohio folks had money, and they thought that was pretty funny. And Pete was up next. And he goes to the microphone in his rented tuxedo, and he says, "I'm glad you brought up the issue of money, because I want to talk about that. But first, Carl, remember the time we got up at dawn and went surfing on the North Shore of Maui, when the sets were coming in perfect at 8 feet, and we had the beach to ourselves? And remember that time at San Carlos in Mexico, when a swell arrived from some storm in the Pacific, and how huge the break was that day? And remember all the sailing we did at Roosevelt, or Rufus, or Doug's, or the hatchery? Carl, I bring this up because today is the best day of your life. Today, you and Sarah are getting married. But before today, those days in Oregon and Hawaii and Mexico, those days were the best days of our lives. They were the best things we ever did. And here's where I want to talk about money. Those are the best things we ever did, and they didn't cost us a penny. I don't know what passions you all have. Some of you will pursue adventure. Some of you will pursue art or music. Maybe you'll travel. You all have your dreams. Sing your song. Remember, the best things in life, they're not things. Sing your song. Be open to the people that you meet. Be open to the opportunities that change your path and ultimately your tune. Sing your song. It's going to be so good. Thank you.